A woman who cannot give my son an heir does not belong at the head of this table.
My mother ripped Cecilia's chair away so hard that its legs screamed across the marble floor. Before anyone could move, she lifted a crystal glass and poured red soda over my wife's head. The room went silent. Soda ran through Cecilia's dark hair across her cheeks and down the white dress she had worn for our 12th anniversary. A red stain spread over her chest like a wound. I should have stopped my mother. I should have crossed the room, taken Cecilia's hand, and told every relative at that table to leave. Instead, I remained beside my chair. My name is Adrian Monroe, and that silence would cost me everything. Our daughters. Grace and Sophie stared at their grandmother in horror. Grace pushed back her chair, but Cecilia raised one hand. "Stay with your sister," she said. Her voice did not shake. Mother set the empty glass down and smiled as if she had performed some necessary household duty. "Do not make a scene, Cecilia. Tonight is supposed to be a celebration." The dining room doors opened. Brianna Cole entered wearing a fitted red dress and holding a bouquet of white roses. She was 28, nervous, and clearly unprepared for what she saw. Her smile disappeared when she noticed Cecilia's soaked dress. Mother hurried to her, took the flowers, and guided her toward me. "Everyone, this is Brianna," she announced. "She is the woman who will finally give Adrian a son." Several relatives lowered their eyes. Others looked at Cecilia, waiting for her to cry, scream, or beg. She did none of those things. Brianna looked at me. "Adrian, you said Cecilia understood." Every face turned in my direction. I could have ended the humiliation with one honest sentence. But Mother answered for me. "Cecilia understands that a family needs an heir. She can remain the first wife if she knows her place." She pointed toward the open doorway. "If she refuses, she can leave our house tonight." Grace stood up. "This is Mom's house." Mother laughed. "No, sweetheart. This house belongs to your father. One day it will belong to his son." Sophie began crying quietly. Cecilia looked at both girls, and for the first time something moved behind her calm expression. It was not fear for herself. It was pain for her children. Mother pulled out Cecilia's chair and offered it to Brianna. "Sit. You should become familiar with your place." Brianna hesitated. "I do not want to take anyone's seat." "Nonsense. Some women create families. Others merely occupy space." The cruelty of that sentence filled the room, yet no one challenged it. Cecilia reached for a linen napkin and wiped the soda from her face. As her sleeve slipped back, a slim platinum watch appeared on her wrist. I had seen it for years and assumed it was a family keepsake. None of us knew it was one of only 12 watches commissioned for the controlling owners of Monroe Commercial Holdings. When Cecilia opened her worn leather purse, I glimpsed a black card, a fountain pen with her initials, and a silver key engraved with 3 words, "Monroe Estate Owner." The clues were in front of us. We simply saw what arrogance allowed us to see. Mother noticed the black card and snorted, still pretending to be important. Cecilia closed the purse. "I have never needed to pretend." Mother stepped closer. "Then prove you have some dignity. Accept Brianna or walk out." Cecilia looked past her and met my eyes. "Is that what you want, Adrian?" My throat tightened. Around me sat relatives who had spent years telling me that 2 daughters were not enough. Mother had repeated that my name, my legacy, and everything I had built would disappear without a son. I knew it was wrong. I also wanted their approval. "Maybe there is a way to make this work," I said. Grace stared at me as if she no longer recognized her father. Cecilia's face became perfectly still. "Make what work? You would remain my legal wife. Nothing has to change between us. Brianna would only give you the child I supposedly failed to provide." I could not answer. Mother clapped once. "Good. Then it is settled." "No," Cecilia said. The single word cut through the room. She removed her wedding ring and placed it inside Mother's empty glass. Metal struck crystal with a sharp final sound. Then her phone lit up on the table. For 1 second, I saw the message on the screen. "Gabriel Lawson. All ownership records confirmed. The estate trust and controlling shares remain solely yours." I did not understand what it meant. Mother did not even look. Cecilia typed a reply, then calmly set the phone down. Brianna, what exactly has this family promised you? Brianna swallowed. A home. Security. A future for my child. This home. Brianna nodded. Cecilia turned to my mother. And who gave you permission to offer it? Mother's mouth twisted into a smile. My son owns this mansion. Do not embarrass yourself by dreaming otherwise. Cecilia glanced at the grandfather clock near the doorway. Then I suppose we should wait 10 minutes. For what? For the person bringing the truth. Mother laughed again. A few relatives joined her, relieved to believe Cecilia was bluffing. But the housekeeper standing near the kitchen did not laugh. Neither did the head of security. Both looked toward Cecilia, not me, as if waiting for their real employer to issue an order. Outside, a black sedan had just passed through the estate gates. Inside it sat attorney Gabriel Lawson with the deed to the mansion, the Monroe Family Trust, and the asset disclosure I had signed 12 years earlier without reading. My mother believed she had just removed an unwanted wife from our family. She did not know she had publicly humiliated the only person who owned the house, the company, and nearly every luxury we had mistaken for ours. And in less than 10 minutes, her greatest victory would become the most devastating mistake of her life. There is a dangerous difference between being ordinary and choosing to look ordinary. My family never learned it until the night their assumptions collapsed. To understand who Cecilia really was, I have to take you back 14 years before our marriage, before our daughters, and long before my mother began calling the Monroe estate my house. At 27. Cecilia Monroe worked on the 46th floor of a glass tower in Manhattan. She had graduated in the top 3% of her MBA class at Columbia and joined one of Wall Street's most demanding risk analysis teams. Her specialty was finding dangers hidden inside financial statements that other people considered flawless. Numbers spoke to Cecilia. A changed percentage, a delayed payment, or a line of debt buried inside a footnote could tell her more than an executive's polished presentation. During her second year at the firm, she discovered that a client had spread fraudulent liabilities across 19 subsidiary companies. 12 senior analysts had approved the account. Cecilia found the deception in one night. Her report prevented an $87 million loss. By 30, she was earning more in 1 year than I earned in 4. She had an office overlooking the East River, a private driver when she wanted one, and a promotion waiting that would have placed her among the youngest partners in the firm's history. Then her father collapsed inside a warehouse in Pennsylvania. Arthur Monroe had built Monroe Commercial Holdings from one delivery truck and a rented storage building. By the time Cecilia was a child, the company had become a regional logistics network. But Arthur never raised her like an heiress. She spent summers checking inventory riding with dispatchers and learning the names of mechanics before she learned the names of board members. When a stroke left him unable to speak clearly or walk without assistance, Cecilia made a decision that stunned everyone on Wall Street. She resigned. She left her glass office, her 7-figure career path, and an apartment overlooking Manhattan. Then she moved into the small guest room beside her father's rehabilitation center. For 11 months, Cecilia divided every day between two worlds. In the morning, she helped Arthur button his shirt, measured his medication, and sat beside him during physical therapy. At night, she reviewed company reports from a folding desk near his bed. She slept in short stretches and learned to answer calls before the first ring woke him. The company was in worse condition than Arthur had admitted. Monroe Commercial Holdings carried more than $210 million in debt. Fuel contracts had been badly negotiated. 3 distribution centers were losing money. A senior executive had arranged secret payments through outside vendors. The board expected Cecilia to sell. Instead, she found the same $87 million fraud pattern she had once uncovered on Wall Street. This time, the deception was inside her father's company. She removed the executive, renegotiated the debt, sold 2 failing properties, and redesigned the company's entire distribution model. Within 18 months, operating costs fell by 21%. Within 3 years, the company expanded into 2 additional states. Arthur watched the transformation from a wheelchair. He never returned to the boardroom, but he lived long enough to see his daughter save everything he had built. If you were in Cecilia's position, would you have abandoned a future worth millions to care for a sick parent? Comment 1 if you would choose family, or 2 if you believe she sacrificed too much. I met her during that period. I was an operations consultant assigned to one of the warehouses she was restructuring. She arrived in an old gray Volvo wearing plain black pants and carrying coffee in a scratched metal cup. I assumed she was an accountant. She never corrected me. For 3 weeks, I explained warehouse operations to the woman who had written the plan I was following. When I criticized one section, she asked me to show her a better method. Instead of humiliating me, she listened, changed 2 steps, and gave my team credit for the improvement. That was Cecilia. She never needed to make another person feel small in order to feel powerful. When I finally discovered she was Arthur Monroe's daughter, I apologized for treating her like a junior employee. She smiled and said, "You treated me well before you knew. That matters more." I fell in love with her because she seemed untouched by money. She ate lunch with drivers, remembered the birthdays of warehouse staff, and visited her father every evening, no matter how late she worked. When we became engaged, she told me there were family assets protected by a trust. She insisted that I meet with Gabriel Lawson, her father's attorney, and hire my own independent lawyer. Gabriel gave me a complete financial disclosure. It explained that all present and future distributions from the Monroe Family Trust would remain Cecilia's separate property. It listed her voting interest in the company, the commercial real estate, and the investment accounts established by her father. I could have read every page. I did not. I signed beside every highlighted paragraph and joked that I was marrying Cecilia, not her balance sheet. She believed me. The truth was that I believed myself then. Arthur died 7 years into our marriage. Under his estate plan, Cecilia received 68% of the voting shares in Monroe Commercial Holdings. She became the controlling owner of 11 distribution centers, more than 400 trucks, and commercial properties across 3 states. The company was valued at $3.8 billion. Yet the morning after the funeral, Cecilia still packed Grace's lunch and drove Sophie to preschool. She declined interviews. She appointed an experienced public-facing chief executive while serving as chairwoman through the family holding company. She conducted board meetings from the library at home and traveled only when a decision required her physical presence. My mother interpreted privacy as weakness. Because Cecilia did not display her title, Mother assumed she had none. Because Cecilia wore simple clothes, Mother assumed I bought everything. Because company vehicles were available for family use, Mother told relatives they belonged to me. I allowed the misunderstanding. At first it felt harmless. People congratulated me on the mansion. They praised my business instincts. Men who had ignored me began inviting me into important rooms. Each time someone called Monroe Commercial Holdings my company, I could have corrected them. Instead, I smiled. Cecilia heard some of those comments. She never embarrassed me publicly. In private, she asked whether I wanted people to admire me for something I had not built. I told her it was only conversation. What I did not understand was that every uncorrected lie became another brick in the fantasy my mother eventually treated as fact. The Monroe estate was purchased 5 years before that anniversary dinner. It was not bought in my name or even in Cecilia's personal name. The family trust purchased it as a protected asset, with Cecilia listed as the sole beneficiary. Mother moved through the mansion as if her son had given it to her. She chose guest rooms, hosted lunches, and ordered staff around. When the housekeeper looked to Cecilia for confirmation, Mother called it disrespect. She never asked why the security director addressed my wife as Miss Monroe but called me Mr. Adrian. The clues were everywhere. The slim platinum watch on Cecilia's wrist was not merely expensive. Arthur had commissioned 12 of them after Cecilia completed the company's first billion-dollar restructuring. Each watch belonged to a controlling owner or founding trustee. The battered fountain pen in her purse had signed the acquisition of a $460 million distribution network. The black card carried no preset spending limit because it was secured by Cecilia's personal investment account. And the silver key engraved, Monroe Estate Owner, could activate or revoke every access credential on the property. Mother saw those objects and assumed Cecilia was pretending. That was how completely arrogance had blinded her. Cecilia did not live quietly because she lacked status. She lived quietly because she had seen what inherited wealth could do to a family. She wanted Grace and Sophie to understand that privilege created responsibility, not superiority. She made the girls clean their own rooms. She took them to the company's community food center twice a month. She taught them to thank custodians, drivers, servers, and security officers by name. She often said a person's character could be measured by how they treated someone who could do nothing for them. My mother would soon prove that lesson in the cruelest way possible. Her obsession with a male heir did not begin at the anniversary dinner. For years, she had called our daughters beautiful but temporary. She said Grace would marry and change her name. She said Sophie would leave. A son, she insisted, would preserve my legacy. I should have told her my daughters were my legacy. Instead, I let her repeat the poison until part of me began to believe it. 6 months before the dinner, Mother met Brianna Cole through a family friend. Brianna had been told that Cecilia and I lived separate lives and that my wife had accepted a private arrangement to preserve the family line. Mother showed Brianna photographs of the estate. She promised her the main bedroom, financial security, and a future son's place at the head of Monroe Commercial Holdings. She offered all of it without owning a single brick or share. Back in the dining room, Cecilia sat in her stained white dress while Mother celebrated a victory built entirely on imaginary power. What none of us knew was that Cecilia had already sent 5 words to Gabriel Lawson. Bring the ownership records now. Gabriel's sedan was moving up the private drive. Beside him lay the estate deed, the trust documents, the company register, and the disclosure agreement bearing my signature on every page. My mother had less than 10 minutes left to believe she controlled the room. She was about to use those minutes to accuse Cecilia of theft, strip away her dignity, and order security to remove her. She did not realize that each new insult was being delivered in front of employees whose contracts Cecilia controlled inside a mansion Cecilia owned, while the attorney carrying the end of Mother's entire fantasy walked steadily toward the door. Gabriel's sedan was still moving up the drive when my mother decided Cecilia had not been humiliated enough. Eleanor, she called to the housekeeper, bring another chair. Eleanor Tate had managed the estate staff for nearly 7 years. She stood beside the kitchen doors with both hands folded, staring at the red stain on Cecilia's dress. Mrs. Monroe already has a chair, she said carefully. Mother's smile hardened. That chair belongs to the woman who will provide this family with an heir. She turned toward Brianna and pulled out the high-backed seat Cecilia had occupied at every family dinner since we moved into the estate. Sit down, dear. Brianna did not move. I really think I should leave. Mother caught her wrist. You will do no such thing. You have nothing to be ashamed of. The message was clear. In my mother's mind, the only person who deserved shame was the woman dripping soda onto the marble floor. Eleanor disappeared into the service hallway. When she returned, she carried a folding plastic chair with one bent leg. It had been stored beside the catering supplies and still had a gray mark across the seat. Mother pointed toward the kitchen entrance where a cart held dirty plates and a lined trash bin. Put it there. Several relatives shifted uncomfortably. My Aunt Louise opened her mouth, then closed it. My cousin Denise stared down at her plate. They all knew the arrangement was cruel, but none of them wanted to become Mother's next target. Eleanor looked at Cecilia rather than Mother. Cecilia gave a small nod. Only then did Eleanor place the plastic chair beside the service cart. That should have told me everything. The woman I thought was merely a housekeeper had waited for my wife's permission before following my mother's order. Raymond, the head of security, had done the same thing for years. Drivers, groundskeepers, and company employees all looked to Cecilia when a final decision mattered. I had mistaken their discipline for politeness. Cecilia walked across the room and sat on the damaged chair. It rocked beneath her, but she steadied it without complaint. Grace immediately stood. Mom can have my seat. Cecilia shook her head. Stay beside Sophie. But Grandma put you next to the trash, Mother answered before Cecilia could. Your mother chose that seat when she refused to respect this family. Grace turned toward me. Her face was pale, but her voice was direct. Dad, are you going to let her say that every adult at the table watched me? I wish I could tell you I found my courage. I did not. Sit down, Grace. We will discuss this later. The disappointment in her eyes cut deeper than anger. Mother guided Brianna into Cecilia's chair and filled her plate with food. She offered her the best cut of meat, poured champagne, and spoke with the warmth she had denied my wife for years. You need to eat, Mother said. A woman preparing to have a child must keep up her strength. Brianna set down her fork. I am not pregnant. Not yet. Mother laughed, and two relatives forced themselves to join her. She began describing the mansion as if conducting a private tour. The main bedroom is on the 3rd floor. The room beside it would make a perfect nursery. There is enough space behind the garden for a playhouse. Brianna glanced toward Cecilia. I was told there would be a separate residence. Plans change. A son should grow up in his father's home. Mother raised her glass. To the future of the Monroe family. No one lifted a drink except my Uncle Thomas. Sophie began crying. She was only 6, young enough to miss the legal implications, but old enough to understand rejection. Does Grandma not want us anymore? She whispered. Cecilia moved from the plastic chair and knelt beside her. Red soda had soaked through the front of her dress, but she ignored it. Look at me, she told Sophie. You and your sister are enough. You have always been enough. Then why does Dad need another child? That question entered my chest and stayed there. Cecilia did not answer for me. She looked over Sophie's head and waited. I could have crossed the room. I could have knelt beside my daughter and said I needed no one else. Instead, I told myself the children were too young to understand a complicated family decision. Cowardice often disguises itself as patience. Cecilia wiped Sophie's tears and returned her to Grace. Then she noticed soda still shining on the floor near Mother's shoes. She picked up a linen napkin, bent down, and wiped the marble clean. Mother gave a satisfied laugh. At least you know how to make yourself useful. Cecilia folded the wet napkin and placed it on the service cart. I did not want you to slip before the evening was over. Her tone was calm enough to sound helpful, but something in Mother's expression tightened. She did not know Cecilia was preserving her dignity, not surrendering it. She also did not know she had just used the final minutes of her access to that house to mock its owner. The grandfather clock struck the quarter hour. Gabriel was 6 minutes away. Mother reached beneath the table and lifted a leather folder. Now that everyone is settled, we can handle the practical details. She placed a document in front of Cecilia. The title read, Family Succession Agreement. I had seen an earlier version 2 weeks before. Mother claimed a private family agreement would prevent scandal and protect everyone. I had not asked who drafted it. I had not shown it to a real attorney. I had simply told her the basic idea made sense. Cecilia read the first page. Under its terms, she would remain my legal wife and continue managing the household. Brianna would be recognized as my private partner for the purpose of producing a male heir. If a son was born, he would receive controlling authority over the family businesses when he reached 30. Grace and Sophie would each receive an education fund. Nothing more. The document assumed I owned the company, the mansion, the investments, and every other asset associated with the Monroe name. Mother had divided property she did not own among children who did not exist. Cecilia turned the final page. You expect me to sign this? Mother slid a pen toward her. It allows you to keep your position, my position as what Adrian's first wife. Cecilia looked at me. Did you approve this? My mouth went dry. I approved the idea of an arrangement. Answer the question. Mother struck the table with her palm. Stop interrogating him. You are the one who failed to provide an heir. Cecilia never looked away from me. Did you approve it, Adrian? I felt the weight of every person in the room. Mother's hand rested on my shoulder. Brianna watched me with growing uncertainty. My daughters held each other near the far end of the table, and I chose the answer that destroyed what remained of my marriage. I thought it was best for the family. Cecilia nodded once. Her expression did not crack. She did not cry or raise her voice. That frightened me more than any explosion could have. She reached into her purse for her father's fountain pen. As she moved it, the black card and silver estate key slipped onto the floor. Mother was faster. She bent down and snatched them up. What are these? Cecilia held out her hand. My property. Mother studied the black card, then looked at Cecilia's stained dress and plastic chair. "A woman like you could never qualify for this." The words were absurd. Cecilia was not a stranger in worn clothes standing inside a bank. She was my wife seated inside the home where she had raised our children. Yet Mother had spent so many years reducing her to a dependent woman that she could no longer recognize evidence in front of her. She handed me the card. "Check it." I recognized the issuer. The card was reserved for clients with extraordinary private assets. I had applied for a similar account 2 years earlier and received a polite rejection. I turned it over. Cecilia A. Monroe. "Where did you get this?" I asked. Cecilia's eyes settled on me. "From my bank." "Your bank?" The question escaped before I understood how insulting it sounded. Mother took the card back. "It is probably fake." "Call the number on the reverse," Cecilia said. "Put the representative on speaker and ask who owns the account." Mother examined the number but did not dial. Instead, she lifted the silver key. "And this Monroe estate owner. You stole this from Adrian's office. Adrian does not have an office key." I felt several people look at me. Mother ignored the answer. "How long have you been taking things from my son Cecilia's hand?" remained extended. "Return them. Not until we know what else you have stolen." Brianna stood. "Mrs. Monroe, maybe you should give them back." Mother turned sharply. "Do not let her confuse you. The card has her name on it. A name proves nothing." Brianna looked at me. "Did you tell your mother the key came from your office?" I had never seen the key before that night. But admitting that would weaken the version of myself I had allowed everyone to believe. "Cecilia handles most household records," I said. It was not an answer. Brianna knew it. So did Cecilia. Mother slipped the card and key into her jacket pocket. "I will hold these until an investigation is completed." Cecilia lowered her hand. "Are you certain? Completely?" "Then keep them safe. You will soon need to explain why they were found in your pocket." My mother laughed, but Brianna stepped farther away from her. Cecilia opened her fountain pen and drew one line across the signature page of the agreement. Then she wrote a single word in large, controlled letters. "Rejected." Mother grabbed the paper. "You think you have a choice? I know exactly what choices I have." Mother's face darkened. She reached for Cecilia's wrist and pulled back her sleeve, exposing the platinum watch. "Is this stolen too? Let go of me." It was the first command Cecilia had given all night. Mother tightened her grip. "This family paid for everything you wear." I finally moved. "Mother, release her." She let go, but not because she respected Cecilia. She did it because I had spoken. That difference mattered. A red mark circled Cecilia's wrist. She covered it with her sleeve and returned the fountain pen to her purse. She still did not strike back. She still did not reveal the documents, moving toward the front door. Was Cecilia's patience wisdom, or had silence allowed my family to become even crueler? Comment 1. 1 if you believe she was right to wait for proof, or 2 if you think she should have exposed us immediately. The room had divided into 3 groups. Some relatives looked ashamed. Some still believed Mother. And a few had begun recording with their phones, hoping to capture a wealthy family's scandal without realizing they were preserving evidence. Mother saw the cameras and raised her voice. "Everyone should understand what is happening. Cecilia has been caught with a fraudulent bank card, a stolen estate key, and company property she cannot explain." She pointed to the watch. "She has probably been stealing from Adrian for years." My Aunt Louise whispered, "Geneva, perhaps you should stop." Mother rounded on her. "Why are you defending a thief?" Louise fell silent. Mother looked toward Eleanor. "Call security." Eleanor did not move. Now, Cecilia spoke quietly. "Call Raymond, please." Eleanor nodded. "Yes, Ms. Monroe." Mother missed the exchange. She was too busy addressing the relatives like a prosecutor before a jury. I welcomed this woman into our family. My son provided her with a mansion staff and a life most people could only dream about. This is how she repays us. The lie was so large that for a second even I wanted to believe it. Raymond Pierce entered with 2 security officers. His radio clicked once, then went silent. He surveyed the room. He saw Cecilia beside the service cart, the mark around her wrist, our crying daughters, and the black card protruding from Mother's pocket. "What happened?" he asked. Mother pointed at Cecilia. "Remove her from the property." Raymond remained still. "Ms. Monroe." "Do not ask her," Mother snapped. "I am giving you an order." Raymond's eyes shifted toward Cecilia. "I need authorization from the property holder." Mother laughed in disbelief. "My son owns this house." Raymond looked at me. Until that moment, I had never questioned why he always requested Cecilia's approval for security changes. I had assumed she enjoyed managing details. Now everyone waited for me to prove I was the man my mother claimed. "Cecilia should leave for the evening," I said. The sentence sounded weaker aloud than it had in my mind. Raymond did not move. Mother stepped toward him. "You heard the owner?" "I heard Mr. Adrian." The distinction struck me like a warning. Mother's face flushed. "If you refuse, you are fired." Raymond's expression did not change. "You do not employ me." A murmur traveled around the table. Mother pulled out her phone. "Then I will call the police and report the theft." Cecilia rose from the plastic chair. Grace ran to her side with Sophie close behind. Mother pointed toward the girls. "Take them upstairs. They should not watch their mother being escorted out." Grace wrapped both arms around Cecilia. "We are going with Mom." "No," I said too quickly. "You will stay here." Cecilia turned toward me. The room seemed to contract around us. "You want me to leave without our daughters only until this is resolved. And where do you believe they should remain?" I heard myself give the answer my mother had placed inside me. "In their father's house." Grace recoiled. Sophie buried her face against Cecilia's side. Mother smiled as if I had finally passed a test. Brianna looked horrified. "Adrian, you told me Cecilia agreed to this." I could not meet her eyes. "We were discussing options. You said the marriage was already over." The guests began whispering again. Mother stepped between us. "Brianna, do not become emotional. Cecilia is manipulating everyone because she cannot accept reality." Cecilia rested a hand on each daughter's shoulder. "Grace, take Sophie to the library. Lock the door and wait for me." Grace shook her head. "I will not leave you. I am not alone." Cecilia glanced at Eleanor, then Raymond. Both gave almost invisible nods. Grace finally led Sophie away. Mother mistook Cecilia's effort to protect the girls for another retreat. "There. Now security can do its job." She shoved the plastic chair aside. One bent leg caught against the service cart, sending a stack of dessert plates crashing onto the floor. The sound exploded through the room. Mother stepped backward, nearly placing her heel on a sharp piece of porcelain. Cecilia moved first. She caught Mother's elbow and pulled her away from the broken plate. "Careful." Mother jerked free. "Do not touch me." Cecilia crouched and began gathering the larger pieces so no one would be cut. Even after being soaked, accused, robbed, and threatened with removal, she protected the woman humiliating her. Mother watched her and sneered. "Cleaning suits you better than pretending to run a family." Cecilia placed the broken porcelain on the cart. "You are right about one thing. Something in this room needs to be cleaned out." The front doorbell rang. No one moved. It rang a second time. Eleanor left the dining room. A moment later, the sound of firm footsteps crossed the marble foyer. Gabriel Lawson appeared in the doorway wearing a charcoal suit and carrying a thick leather case. Beside him stood a legal specialist and Dorian Price, the managing director of Monroe Asset Management. Gabriel took in the scene without speaking. His eyes moved from Cecilia's stained dress to the red mark on her wrist, then to Raymond and the two security officers. Finally, he noticed Cecilia's black card and estate key in Mother's pocket. His expression became cold. "No one touches Ms. Monroe." Mother folded her arms. "This is a private family matter. You have no authority here." Gabriel walked to this table and set down his case. The locks opened with 2 precise clicks. "Ownership is exactly why I have authority." He removed a document bearing the seal of the Monroe Family Trust and turned toward me. "Before security removes anyone, Mr. Adrian should read page 17 of the agreement he signed 12 years ago. He placed the page in front of me. I saw my initials beside every paragraph and my signature across the bottom. Then I read the first sentence. The room tilted. My hands went cold, and for the first time that night I understood why Cecilia had never been afraid. The first sentence on page 17 destroyed the life I thought I owned. I read it twice. All present and future assets held by the Monroe Family Trust, including business interests, real property investment accounts, and distributions, shall remain the sole and separate property of Cecilia A. Monroe. My signature appeared beneath the paragraph. So did my initials. The dining room became cemetery silent. I could hear the faint buzz of the chandelier above us and the uneven rhythm of my own breathing. Mother still had her phone raised, but her thumb no longer moved across the screen. "This is not possible," I said. Gabriel opened another section of the file. "You signed the disclosure 12 years ago." I did not understand it. "Your independent attorney certified that every provision was explained to you." He turned the page toward me. There was the lawyer's signature. There was my written acknowledgement. There were my initials beside a sentence confirming I had entered the agreement voluntarily and with full access to financial records. I remembered the office. I remembered Cecilia encouraging me to read the documents carefully. Most painfully, I remembered joking that I wanted her not her balance sheet. Gabriel watched recognition spread across my face. "The agreement was not hidden from you, Mr. Adrian. You chose not to read it." Mother snatched the paper from the table. That was before the mansion. Marriage changes things. Gabriel removed a second document. The Monroe estate was purchased by the family trust 5 years ago. It was never a marital asset. He placed the deed beneath the chandelier. The county seal caught the light. Halfway down the page, a single line identified the trust's sole beneficiary, Cecilia A. Monroe. Mother stared at the name. The phone slid from her fingers, struck the edge of the table, and fell onto the marble. The sharp crack made everyone flinch. "No," she whispered. "Adrian lives here." Gabriel did not soften his response. "Occupancy is not ownership." Mother turned toward me. "Tell him." I could not. For years, I had entered the estate through gates that opened automatically for my car. I had hosted colleagues in the library, poured drinks behind the bar, and accepted compliments about the property. I had never made a mortgage payment. I had never paid the property tax. I had never even seen the deed. Mother backed into the table. Her champagne glass tipped over, rolled across the linen, and dropped onto the floor. It shattered with a sound like ice breaking across a frozen lake. No one bent down to help her. She looked at Gabriel again. "The company is still Adrian's. Everyone knows that." Dorian Price stepped forward. Until that evening, Mother had seen him only in business magazines and photographs from corporate events. As managing director of Monroe Asset Management, he supervised billions of dollars in property and investment holdings. Mother straightened, apparently believing a powerful man would support her version of reality. "Mr. Price, please explain this to them." Dorian walked past her. He stopped in front of Cecilia, lowered his head respectfully, and spoke 2 words that erased every remaining illusion in the room. "Madam Chair." Mother's lips parted. Dorian continued. "The board has confirmed your 68% voting interest. All estate accounts are secure, and the directors are standing by for your instructions." The title landed harder than a shout. "Madam Chair." Raymond straightened near the doorway. Eleanor lowered her head. Several relatives who had been recording quietly dropped their phones to their sides. Mother looked from Dorian to Cecilia. Chair of what Dorian's answer came without hesitation. "Monroe Commercial Holdings." Mother gripped the tablecloth. "She works from home. She directs the holding company from her private office. She drives an old car, by choice. She has never run anything." Dorian's expression cooled. "Mrs. Cecilia Monroe led the restructuring that saved this company, negotiated the acquisition that doubled our distribution capacity, and controls 68% of all voting shares." He placed the corporate register on the table. "The current enterprise value is approximately $3.8 billion. A soft gasp moved around the room. Mother's face went white. Sweat appeared along her hairline. She opened her mouth, closed it, and looked at me as if I might still produce a hidden document that would restore everything. I had nothing. "What percentage belongs to Adrian?" she asked. No one answered immediately. That pause was worse than the truth. Gabriel finally spoke. "Mr. Adrian owns no shares." My knees weakened. I lowered myself into a chair before I fell. No shares, no mansion, no authority over the trust. The business empire my mother had promised to a future son belonged to the woman she had placed beside the trash. Mother shook her head harder. "My son helped build this life." Gabriel opened a financial summary. Mr. Adrian retained all income from his consulting work. Housing, transportation, security, travel, and household expenses were paid through accounts belonging to Mrs. Monroe or the trust. He attended company events. As the chairwoman's spouse, he met executives. As the chairwoman's spouse. Each answer stripped away another layer of the identity I had borrowed. Mother pointed toward Cecilia's stained dress. "She deceived us." For the first time since Gabriel entered, Cecilia moved. She rose from the damaged plastic chair. Brianna immediately stepped away from the head of the table. Cecilia crossed the room slowly, her heels making steady sounds against the marble. No one laughed now. No one told her where to sit. She stopped in front of Mother. "What did I hide from you? You never said you owned this house. You never asked. You allowed us to think Adrian owned it. I allowed you to talk. You built the rest yourself." Mother's breathing became shallow. "If I had known who you were," Cecilia's eyes sharpened. "You did know who I was." Mother froze. "I was your son's wife. I was the mother of your granddaughters. I cared for this family for 12 years. Her voice remained quiet, yet each sentence seemed to strike harder than the last. "What you mean is that if you had known how much money I controlled, you would have treated me like a human being." Mother lifted both hands. "I was upset. I made a mistake. A mistake is using the wrong glass. You poured a drink over me. You called my daughters inadequate. You brought another woman into my home and promised her property that was never yours. I only wanted what was best for the family. No, you wanted a boy whose name you could place on a woman's work." Mother looked toward the relatives. "Someone say something." No one did. Cecilia took another step closer. "Respect should not begin when you discover someone's title or bank balance. It should have been your default." The room remained silent. Mother's hand moved toward the pocket containing Cecilia's card and estate key. Cecilia turned toward Raymond. "Retrieve my property." Raymond stepped forward. "Yes, Madam Chair." That response changed the balance of the room completely. Mother clutched her jacket closed. "These belong to the family." Gabriel spoke without raising his voice. "The card is issued in Cecilia's name. The key controls a residence owned by her trust. Refusing to return either item after a direct request may be treated as theft." Mother's fingers trembled as she removed them. The black card struck the silver key with a clean metallic click. Raymond accepted both and carried them to Cecilia. "Madam Chair." Cecilia placed them inside her purse. Then she looked toward the library doors. "Grace, Sophie, you can come out now." The doors opened slowly. Grace entered first, holding her sister's hand. Both girls had heard enough to understand that their mother was not being removed. Cecilia knelt before them. "Listen to me. Neither of you needs to be a boy to matter. You do not need a company, a title, or an inheritance to prove your worth." Sophie touched the red stain on her mother's dress. "Are we leaving, no sweetheart?" Cecilia glanced at Mother. "We are home." Grace looked at me from across the room. "Is Dad staying?" The question cut through what little remained of my pride. I took one step forward. "Cecilia, we can fix this." She stood. "Which part?" "Tonight." Mother went too far. She did. I was under pressure. You approved the agreement. I was confused. You asked me to leave. I looked down. I did not understand what was happening. You understood that your wife was being humiliated. You understood that our daughters were being told they were not enough. I reached toward her. "I can say no now. Cecilia stepped beyond my hand. You had 12 years to say it. Tonight you only needed one word. My arm fell to my side. I am sorry. You are afraid. That is not true. Then why did your apology begin after you learned you owned nothing? I had no answer. Brianna removed the scarf Mother had placed around her shoulders and set it on the vacant chair. I was lied to. Mother turned on her. Do not start. Brianna faced Cecilia. I was told you agreed. Adrian said the marriage was ending. His mother promised a separate home and said a future child would inherit the company. Cecilia looked at me. I could not hold her gaze. Brianna's voice shook, but she continued. I will not have the child for people who treat women like tools and girls like disappointments. Mother grabbed her arm. You are throwing away your future. Brianna pulled free. No, I am finally seeing it clearly. Cecilia turned to Eleanor. Please arrange a car for Ms. Cole and make sure she gets home safely. Brianna stared at her. After what I did, you would still help me. You were deceived. Cecilia glanced at me again. I understand that better than anyone. Mother watched Brianna walk toward the foyer. Panic replaced the last traces of defiance on her face. Cecilia, please. We are family. Family does not replace a mother in front of her children. I apologized. You explained why you regret being caught. Cecilia faced Raymond. Revoke Geneva Monroe's access to this estate and every property managed by the trust. Effective immediately. Mother staggered backward. You cannot ban me from my son's home. Cecilia's reply was almost gentle. We have established whose home this is. Raymond entered a command on his security device. A short electronic tone sounded. Access revoked, Madam Chair. Cecilia nodded toward the front door. Escort her out. Raymond and the two officers moved to either side of Mother. Her eyes widened. You are having security remove me. You demanded that I be removed publicly. I am giving you the ending you selected. Mother looked at me. Adrian stopped them. I remained seated. For the first time in my life, Mother's authority over me had collided with something stronger than fear consequence. She turned to the relatives. Are all of you going to watch this? They had watched Cecilia's humiliation. Now they watched Mother's. Raymond gestured toward the foyer. This way, ma'am. Mother walked between the officers. Her heels struck the marble in fast, uneven beats. At the doorway, she looked back one final time. I did everything for this family. Cecilia stood with an arm around each daughter. You did it for you thought a man controlled. The front door closed behind Mother. A second later, the electronic lock gave one quiet beep. That tiny sound ended years of entitlement. Do you believe immediate removal was a fair punishment? Or was it too lenient after what Mother did to Cecilia and the girls? Share your judgment in the comments. Inside the dining room, relatives began leaving without being asked. Some apologized. Others avoided Cecilia's eyes. No one tried to sit in her chair. Cecilia returned to the head of the table. Gabriel placed the trust documents before her. Dorian stood at her right. Raymond waited near the door for instructions. The red stain remained on her dress, but the woman my family had treated like a dependent now controlled every person and asset in the room. I sat across from her with nothing left to hide behind. What happens to me, I asked. Cecilia removed her wedding ring from the crystal glass and set it on page 17 beside my signature. Then she looked directly at me. Now we discussed the divorce. 3 months later, I sat across from Cecilia in a private mediation room and watched our 12-year marriage become a stack of signed pages. There was no dramatic legal battle. Gabriel presented the trust, the ownership records, and the agreement I had signed before our wedding. My attorney reviewed them twice and reached the same conclusion. The estate belonged to Cecilia's trust. The company shares belonged to Cecilia. The investment accounts were separate property. I kept my consulting income, personal savings, and the car I had purchased myself. Cecilia did not try to take anything that was mine. She simply refused to give me what had never belonged to me. Before signing the final page, I looked at her. I do not care about the company anymore. I want my family back. Cecilia's expression was calm, but it was not cold. Our family did not end when Gabriel opened that case. She placed her hand on the document. It ended when you watched your mother tell our daughters they were not enough. I know. You knew that night. Now you understand the cost. I signed. For the first time in my life, I read every word first. I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. It was clean and comfortable, but the second bedroom remained empty. Grace and Sophie were not ready to stay overnight with me. Cecilia never prevented me from seeing them. She only said trust could not be claimed like property. It had to be earned through consistent action. So I began therapy. I stopped blaming my mother. I stopped calling my behavior confusion or pressure. I wrote letters to my daughters without asking them to forgive me. I told them what I had done, why it was wrong, and what I was trying to change. Sophie agreed to meet me first. Grace needed more time. I accepted both decisions. My mother faced a more public consequence. One guest had uploaded a recording from the anniversary dinner. It showed Mother pouring soda over Cecilia, presenting Brianna as my second wife, and declaring that her granddaughters were not real heirs. Within 48 hours, the video had been viewed hundreds of thousands of times. The public reaction became especially severe because Mother held a paid position as Director of Community Relations for the Monroe Family Foundation. Cecilia had helped her obtain that job 6 years earlier. Mother appeared at charity luncheons, spoke about women's dignity, and raised money for disadvantaged children. Now donors could see how she treated women and girls when she believed no one powerful was watching. The foundation called an emergency board meeting. Mother entered carrying recommendation letters and wearing the pearl necklace Cecilia had given her one Christmas. No one rose to greet her. The ethics chair placed a tablet on the conference table. The frozen image showed Mother holding the empty glass above Cecilia's stained dress. "Do you deny that this is you?" Mother tightened her grip on her purse. "That was a private family disagreement. You publicly degraded a woman and called 2 girls inadequate because of their sex." I was provoked by what Mother had no answer. The chair pushed a termination letter across the table. "Effective immediately, you are dismissed as Director of Community Relations. You may no longer represent this foundation or attend its events as an officer." Mother's face lost its color. "You are firing me over one mistake. We are dismissing you because the recording reveals that the values you promoted publicly were never the values you practiced privately." She looked around the table for support. No one spoke. Mother left the meeting through a hallway lined with employees who had once admired her. Conversations stopped as she passed. No one laughed, but their silence carried the public shame she had once intended for Cecilia. Mother called me afterward. She demanded that I challenge the foundation, threaten the board, and make Cecilia reverse the decision. For once, I said the word I should have said years earlier. No. She accused me of choosing Cecilia over my own blood. I told her blood did not excuse cruelty. We did not speak for several months. Brianna left town shortly after the divorce proceedings began. Before leaving, she sent Cecilia a handwritten apology. She admitted that promises of security and status had made her ignore questions she should have asked. Cecilia answered with one sentence. "You walked away when you learned the truth, and that choice still matters." A year later, Monroe Commercial Holdings expanded into 2 additional states. Revenue rose by 32%, and the company created more than 800 new jobs. Cecilia was named Regional Business Leader of the Year. She refused to hold a luxury celebration. Instead, she combined the award grant with $30 million of her own money and created the Enough Initiative. The program funded scholarships for girls from low-income families, emergency housing for single mothers, financial training for women, rebuilding after divorce, and free childcare for parents attending vocational programs. Its first center opened inside a renovated warehouse where Cecilia had worked beside her father years earlier. There were no marble floors or chandeliers. There were classrooms, a legal clinic, a child care room, and a kitchen that served hot meals without asking anyone to prove they deserved one. Cecilia did more than sign checks. One Saturday each month, she worked at the center. She reviewed resumes, taught basic budgeting, served meals, and listened to women who had been underestimated because of poverty, motherhood, age, or appearance. During one visit, a young mother asked why a billionaire would spend hours helping people who could offer nothing in return. Cecilia smiled. That is when kindness matters most. Grace and Sophie often joined her. They packed school supplies, sorted donated clothing, and greeted every visitor at the door. Cecilia wanted them to understand that inheritance was not permission to stand above people. It was a responsibility to lift others. At the opening of the Third Enough Initiative Center, Grace cut the ribbon while Sophie distributed backpacks to the scholarship students. I stood at the back of the crowd. I was not there as the chairwoman's husband or as a man borrowing status from the Monroe name. I was simply a father whom his daughters had allowed to attend. After the ceremony, Grace approached me with a bottle of water. It was the first time she had initiated a conversation since the anniversary dinner. "You can come to my school presentation next week," she said. My throat tightened. I would like that. Mom says forgiveness does not mean pretending something never happened. She is right. Grace studied me. "You still have to prove you have changed." "I know." She handed me the water and returned to her sister. It was not complete forgiveness. It was a door opening one careful inch. Cecilia watched from across the room. She did not interfere. She had never used the girls to punish me, but she would never force them to trust me either. That was another difference between power and control. Power protects people. Control uses them. My mother had wanted a grandson to inherit wealth she did not own. I had wanted approval badly enough to wound the people who loved me. Cecilia could have destroyed us financially, yet she took only what was hers and converted her pain into opportunity for strangers. That is why she won. Not because she owned a mansion. Not because she controlled a $3.8 billion company. Not because powerful executives called her Madam Chair. She won because humiliation did not make her cruel. When she gained the power to punish, she chose boundaries instead of revenge. When she met women who had less than she did, she offered respect before asking for credentials. Money can purchase a large house, but it cannot create a home. A title can make people stand when you enter, but it cannot make them respect who you are after you leave. Appearance may shape a first impression, but character determines the truth that remains. The real measure of the person is not how they treat someone famous, wealthy, or useful. It is how they treat the worker, clearing the table, the mother struggling alone, the child others overlook, or the quiet woman they believe has no power. Cecilia had said it years earlier when I mistook her for a junior accountant. "You treated me well before you knew. That matters more." I had forgotten that lesson. Losing my marriage forced me to learn it again. Have you ever been underestimated because of your appearance, your job, your background, or something you could not control? Tell your story in the comments. Your experience may give courage to someone facing the same judgment today. And if you believe respect should never depend on status, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more stories where hidden truth comes to light. Dignity defeats arrogance and justice always finds its way home.